Hello, everyone. For the last couple months, I've been working on this outline for you in regards to comparing and contrasting Stellar versus Solana and Ethereum. Now, I won't be able to get into every little thing in regards to, for example, comparing deployment of meme coins on Solana versus Ethereum and so on. Where I want you guys to pay attention is understanding smart contract functionality and what the big money, the smart money, will choose. In my opinion, with this research and my hypothesis, I feel as though that Stellar will be the shining star out of these three. Yes, I know it's a bold statement to compare Stellar to the two juggernauts of Solana and Ethereum, but there's a huge problem that exists, underlying issues, if you will, especially when it comes to Solana. So, if anything, stick around to the end of this outline and please smash a like if you haven't done so already. Why do you want to stick around to the end of the outline? Because you're going to see with actual research why I feel as though that Stellar will outperform Ethereum and even Solana at the height of this next bull run. And I know some people look at the price of Stellar and say, there's no freaking way. You're full of it. Hey, that's all right. I understand you got to have thick skin in this game. I might have more thicker skin than some of the other people out there, and I'm okay with that. But guess what? Always pay attention to what the institutions are doing. And if you're new or been in this for a while, or you're the type of person you just hate Stellar for whatever reason, understand supply and demand forces. So let's kick it into the outline. You're going to want to hear the presented material. And for some people that don't have the time, hey, do you ever own a VCR back in the day? Maybe you're one of the younger guys and never had something like that. Ask your parents about it. Yes, hit the pause button. Come back. Anyway, for all the rest of us, let's get into the material. Let's jump into it. So look what we have here. Let's start off with this. And this is from stellar.org. I've gone ahead and got to the key areas of this. So it would basically take you, I don't know, maybe a good half an hour, 40 minutes, depending on your reading speed and so on, to read all this. I would get into some key highlights, okay? So Solana state compression design. It's called Avocado. I know, some interesting terms. Are you aware it has fundamental design flaws? Now I get it. Some people are going to be like, oh, this is biased. This is written from Stellar. Guess what? You could type in this information anywhere. It will still come up with some issues. And yes, Solana has addressed some of these issues, but from what I've gathered, it's kind of like the concept of Star Wars, if you will. Episode 4, A New Hope, the Death Star, design flaws. Well, as we know, design flaws expose vulnerabilities. That's a real issue. And for everybody that's like raw Solana ETF moving forward, that's going to be something that might be very worrisome. So I'm going to full screen this. Look what it says. RPC nodes expected to store all compressed accounts and account data. No protocol guarantees for compressed account data availability, so compressed data may be lost or censored. This is Solana that we're talking about here. What the heck? Some validators still need to store all compressed accounts. Going on to a little bit more about this, transaction volume will increase and validator arbitrage spam will add to Solana's congestion issues. Now, I'm going to take a pause for a brief moment and talk about this. How can I put it in layman's terms, right? Let's say you're new to all this. Well, picture it like this. You went to a buffet, or you went to Thanksgiving. That's coming up in a few months. Who hasn't overfilled themselves? God knows, based on how I look and so on, I've probably done it more than enough times, right? But my key issue is this. Layman's terms. So we as human beings can get bloated, right? No pun intended. That's why they literally call it state bloat, right? So with all that bloating, we get congested, and that leads to other issues, right? So in blockchain, they have what they call state bloat, and it creates network congestion. But this statement, compressed data, can be lost or censored. And that's on Solana. Yeah, that's a big deal. Worth pointing out. So some validators will need to store all compressed accounts. Transaction volume will increase, and validator arbitrage spam will add to Solana's congestion issues. Again, guys, don't overthink it. All of us have email. I don't know a single person nowadays that doesn't. How much spam do you get? Are you really accessing that spam? No, you're not, for the most part, unless there's something that got moved to that folder, right? But for the most part, spam will build up and build up and build up and just sits there. I have an old Hotmail account, and all that spam there's a ton of it, right? It's going to take me quite a while to find it. My thing is this: Solana has a real issue, and that is in the future, as we get into especially this outline, you will see instances where they specifically mention that when data needs to be pulled on chain to be verified and whatnot, they want users to come up with the transactional info. That sounds like Web 1 to me. That doesn't sound like Web 3. And I know some of you guys hold Solana. I'm not trying to create FUD. I'm rooting for your success, everybody's success. I have nothing against anybody who holds other coins and tokens and so on. I do not try to create tribalism. But I will point out some of the key things, the fundamentals, by comparing and contrasting. And for people that just look at dollar value, like Solana is worth hundreds of dollars, or, Ethereum, thousands of dollars, especially at the height of the bull market. That's where it's at for me. That's not where it's at for me. Stellar is at roughly 10 cents, and it doesn't get mentioned enough, but it is a true solution to key problems, and especially when it comes to state bloat, because they address what they call the elephant in the room. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit more for you guys. And where it states that basically State Archival, which is, by the way, the solution for Stellar, State Archival on the Stellar network is much more efficient and scalable. That in itself is a bold statement, but it's providing a solution. A lot of times people aren't aware of some of this stuff. So listen to this. No increase in transaction volume or spam. Validator snapshots via public history archives guarantee. Look at that statement. Archive data availability. There's no censorship. There's no deletion. No validator needs to store all archived accounts. RPC nodes can shard archival state, reducing cost. State bloat problem is blockchain's biggest elephant in the room. I just talked about that. Every day, millions of new entries are created on a public blockchain. For example, Stellar and Solana. Each validator needs to store all this state indefinitely. Think about that for a second. Indefinitely? Goes on to mention a little bit more. Every meme NFT, because we know that Solana has been kicking butt in the memes, Hello World test contract and spam token needs to be kept around forever, no matter how often the information is actually used. You ever wonder why you see those statements, everyone? That 95% of all NFTs are worthless? Think about it. Let's apply that to the real world. Your inbox, your spam folder. Is that valuable to you? I think that's a good analogy. I think that's a good comparison. So, will it get used at all? More users and use cases come to blockchain. The issue will only grow, causing networks to become slower and more expensive as they try to keep up with all this bloat. Yeah, think about when a person gets really, really bloated. I mean, are they really moving around real quick? Probably not. If anything, they might fall asleep. Is this why Solana goes down all the time? I don't know. That sounds like a crazy analogy, but I think it's a fair one. This isn't a new issue, but here is something I want to share with you guys, okay? So you got to keep in mind that, Solana introduced Avocado, I guess, in 2023. But while there's a lot of ideas on how to solve state bloat, both Vitalik Buterin and even Anatoly from Solana have designs that have significant fundamental flaws. Think about that for a second. It's not just the gas fees, everybody. This is something else that needs to get brought up more than just gas fees, okay? So Ethereum state expiration proposal has double spend bug that, this particular guy found. And its fix is fundamentally incompatible with other plans in Ethereum's roadmap, such as weak and strong statelessness. My God. Okay. And that's a deep dive in itself. And maybe we'll get into that in the future. But the point is Solana's scalability issues. Okay. So everybody that I've seen in this space, and again, this is not me being disrespectful. Okay. I mean, I respect other people's opinions as long as they don't attack the messenger. I want people to understand that Solana, just because you see, what is it, guys? It might be higher. I don't know. Let's just say 28,000, give or take, TPS. They boast that TPS, and they're like, yeah, man, it smokes. It absolutely smokes Stellar. Because Stellar is like, what, 1,500 or something like that? Or maybe 3,000 is high. I don't know. It's supposed to scale up. But they point that out. But the issue is scalability issues, right? How can you have the whole concept of fast TPS and have, for example, scalability issues? And some people say, well, yeah, I mean, that's like, having a Pontiac Fiero from 1986 and it looks like a Ferrari, but it's not a Ferrari, right? Well, not the same. So let's go ahead and full screen this. Let's jump into a little bit more. This gets good, real good. And you will see that at high level, Solana's index compression, that's what it's called, everybody. The State Archival on Stellar works similarly. Each account pays rent. I love this analogy. We love visualizations. Each account pays rent for staying active on the ledger. Whenever the rent runs out, the account is archived, which is Stellar, or compressed, for example, Solana. And any transaction that touches an archive account fails. Eesh. Archive accounts are deleted from validators and stored off-chain, of course, in Merkle trees. If you guys have studied Casper with the hard R, proof of work, right? Not Caspa, the clam chowder version, right? The proof of work. Merkle trees really stand out with that, BSV, and so on, right? But proof of works. To unarchive and reuse these accounts, RPC nodes generate Merkle-style proof. Validators verify the proof, and the entry is added back to the live ledger state. While the high-level strategy is similar, the devil is in the details. No pun intended. Avocado from Solana, just in case you forgot, introduces more problems than it solves. My goodness. With poor data availability, decreased network performance, and higher fees, that's a problem, right? Some people point out, well, what are you talking about? It's so much cheaper to move on Solana compared to Ethereum. True. But decreased network performance would create more fees. So does Solana truly guarantee data availability? No, not really. Look what it says here, guys. And again, it seems like I'm reading everything verbatim. I'm really not. I'm just getting to the key areas. Avocado state compression has known data availability, guarantees for compressed account data. When account data runs out of rent, it is replaced with a hash that is persisted by validators while the data itself is deleted. What? In order to restore or decompress this data, a transaction uploads the original data which validators check against the persisted hash. All right, that's a big problem. Look at what it says. Solana's problem is that the protocol only persists and maintains the availability of the hash, not the data itself. So when we talk about utility in motion, and I know I state that a lot, that is like being headed down the highway in your old 1969 Ford LTD or whatever, and the engine blows out because you're out in Death Valley or something in the height of the summer. That's a problem, right? Yeah, you better believe it's a problem. That's not utility in motion. That's you. And people wonder why Solana's network goes down. I know that's another issue, but that doesn't help their use case. The hash can't be reversed to get to the original data. The protocol can verify that the data is correct. It can't actually store or generate the data. Then what the heck is it doing? Rather, it's the responsibility of the user. Yes, listen to this. If everything flew past your head, listen to this. Rather, it's the responsibility of the user submitting the transaction to come up with the original data. Are you kidding me? Guys, listen, don't overthink it. That statement is the responsibility of the user to come up with the original data. How do I put that in layman's terms? Okay. That's like you going to like Sears 30 years ago, right? And you go to the men's department, and the guy is literally like, there, I don't know, say in New York or something like that, yeah, I'd like to get a refund on this shirt. The guy's there, and his just name is Pascal or whatever. He's just like, yeah, provide me your receipt, sir. Well, I don't have the receipt, sir. I gotta have the receipt. I don't have it. Can't you pull it up in your computer? In my computer? What do you think this is? Go back to Jersey, you bum. Right? Yeah. Go back to Jersey, because guess what? That is like Web 1. When we talk about Solana embracing Web 3, how is it realistically doing that if you see it's the responsibility of the user submitting the transaction to come up with the original data? That's like saying, show me your receipt. This is blockchain. And the beautiful thing about blockchain DLT is that everything is verifiable on a public ledger. That's a huge issue. All right, moving forward. I know, crazy analogy, right? But I'm trying to make things fun. As we get into a little bit more about this, the question is, how can a user actually find this data? The proposal does not discuss data availability, unlike with the index compression, but the piece of Avocado, what an expression, account data is not stored in Merkle trees, and there doesn't appear to be any mechanism to maintain the data at the protocol level. Now, I've gone on X, and I read statements from Anatoly himself, and they do kind of, again, address the issue. But again, kind of like the Death Star, let's just patch up the hole. Let's not just, or let's just, like put wood over the top of it. And no big deal. Nobody's going to see our flaws or anything like that. Last I checked, hackers can find your flaws. That's also an issue. A little bit more. It says, the issue is Solana RPC nodes are already very expensive. That part I wasn't aware of. Because you hear a narrative about fast TPS. Sometimes we overlook some of this stuff. But yeah, they're already very expensive to operate today. Listen to this. 512 gigabytes of RAM is expensive. Heck yeah, it is. That's basically that's half a terabyte, guys. 1,000 megabytes makes 1 gig. 1,000 gigs make a terabyte. So that's basically a little over half a terabyte. This will put more on their plate. Easy to imagine that costs like this will ultimately be passed down to the user, making decompression expensive. Okay, so this whole thing about, Solana is so cheap compared to Ethereum. Right, compared to Ethereum. But what about the long term? They have an issue. You want to talk, like, how do I also put this in an analogy for you? You ever been to LA? I used to go out to LA every year. Fun town to visit. Would never live there, right? LA has a traffic problem. Do they not? Huge traffic problem. Some of the worst traffic probably in the United States. I heard that the Beltway is pretty bad back east. But the issue is congestion. So as the network gets bigger, and yes, I get it, guys. Solana is very, very popular, right? Okay. Fast forward maybe a year or two from now. Then we come back to this. We should all remember this, because this is the underlying factors. All right, a little bit more. So listen to what it says here. They worry more than the price, for example, that there is no guarantee requirement that RPC nodes faithfully store this information. Jeez, wouldn't that make Solana a speculative asset? I mean, I get it. People made money with it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about moving forward. Which one is the better option for smart contract functionality. I mean, there are so many people, guys, and let's face it, a lot of people probably quit listening after 5 minutes, but there's a certain amount of you guys are still listening. Why do you do that? Because you want to understand the bigger picture. We are not at mass adoption yet for Stellar, yet. But for me, if we look into the whole concept of investing into Web3, Stellar has to be the one that really shines compared to the competition, you know? So, man, all right, look at this. Once deleted, the account data payload isn't required for consensus. And so approaches like proof of work, replication won't work. It's not required for consensus. So instead of having, for one, you're not having utility in motion, you're just dead in the tracks. There's no way for Solana Network to guarantee that RPC nodes actually save the deleted data. RPC providers can choose to ignore compressed data because it's too expensive to store, or it might pick and choose only store compressed data that's valuable enough to be profitable. Wow. All right, says for us to think about. That the protocol isn't forcing the RPC to store all data, and if storing the data is getting more and more expensive, the RPC provider may look to cut costs to turn a profit. Jeez. So that means for what? You guys man, we got to talk about this. So we always want to see liquidity added into the pools, but we don't want to see liquidity taken out of the pools. Say what you want. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the whole thing of what's going on with BTC and, paying back, people that were owed in Japan for Mt. Gox, but that's the biggest liquidity pool of them all. This statement about RPC provider may look to cut costs to turn a profit, that's exit liquidity. Okay. And I know some of those terms were a scary thing back when FTX happened, but in reality, this is even more scarier if you look at network congestion, because Solana in the future having huge problems because of that. Right. And again, I could be completely wrong. And guess what? That's okay too. I'm allowed to do that. Maybe some people feel as though that can't be the case, but I just provide research and what I see, and that right there tells me there's a huge problem with Solana moving forward. Can you still make money Solana? Absolutely. There's still lots of memes being deployed on it and so on, but for me, long term, I'm paying more attention to the smart money than just retail money. It is what it is. All right, let's get into another part of this. So it goes on to mention this right here, and that is more about state bloat and the impact of scalability and performance, because we did talk a little bit about this. So basically speaking, a meme that was minted in 2015, and I know some people are like, no, memes didn't come around in 2021. I get it. Just hear about this. 2020, 2021 is more of when it was popularized, but memes minted in 2015 might have to be read in order to process a completely unrelated transaction in 2024. The result is traditional caching techniques that are not applicable, as many random entry hash on the ledger may have to be read in order to process any random transaction. According to the Ethereum Foundation study, once blockchain state reaches a significant size, the network is limited to 214 TPS. That's like ridiculously small, with a solid state drive, right? Or about 2,400 TPS with the newest, most expensive PCI Express and VM drive. Of course, some networks can exceed these limitations by storing large portions of a ledger state in memory. But this makes validator operation very expensive, especially since blockchain state has grown exponentially over the years. All right, here's a comparison. Solana validators currently require at least 256 gigs of RAM compared to just 16 gigabytes for a Stellar validator. So 256 gigabytes is a quarter of a terabyte compared to just 16 gigabytes for a Stellar validator. That's a big deal. All right, how about this statement? If a network wants to remain inexpensive, deliver high TPS, and scale to more users, state bloat cannot continue. The fundamental issue is that a one-time transaction storage fee incurs a recurring cost on the network to maintain this storage, leading to higher validator operating costs as well as reduced network throughput. Enter the State Archival protocol on Stellar with State Archival. Now this gets really, really good. Again, supply and demand, action, reaction, and a solution. So with Stellar, every piece of state on the ledger has a rent balance associated with it. And we talked about this. But when the rent balance goes to zero, every entry is archived and deleted from the ledger. Archive entries cannot be used by any transaction. Archive entries can always be restored and added back to the ledger. Again, it's like a backup, right? So that's definitely a solution. I'm glad to share that with you guys. And basically moving forward, I want to get into this next particular thing. And that is this statement right here. And this is part of my own notes. So let's talk about it for a second. So in 2015, were you aware that Ethereum was introduced the whole concept of smart contract functionality? Now, things being introduced compared to things actually being fully implemented are two totally different things. And where I'm going with this is some things I feel as though that we should all pay attention to. So I'm going to jump over to this real quick. And this is basically Ethereum on CMC. Okay. And as you can see right here, if we highlight it, and I know it's kind of small, it mentions that the all-time low for Ethereum was October 21st, 2015, 9 years ago. Okay, 42 cents. Think about Stellar for a second. This is why I'm pointing this out. Stellar is hovering around 10-cent mark. Okay. And some people are like, oh, it hasn't done nothing. It has nothing. Well, it hasn't done anything because you're not at mass adoption yet, right? And if anything, they just introduced a few months ago the concept of smart contract functionality, right? Protocol 21 upgrade, Sorbonne. We get the gist by now, right? So I thought I'd point this out to you, but more importantly, I want you guys to understand, again, supply and demand forces. So Ethereum launched with smart contract functionality in July 2015. And believe it or not, it was a ground of break in development. It allowed developers to create what is basically referred to as dApps, okay, decentralized applications. It could basically mean that Ethereum blockchain was able to run without the need for central authority. Prior to Ethereum, there were limited options, of course, for decentralized apps, and the concept was relatively new. Ethereum introduced smart contracts, provided, basically like a robust platform, and then, that led to decentralized finance, aka DeFi, and then NFTs. We get the drill, right? So some people ask, basically, let me just stop the screen for a second. Like, what about ERC20, Max? You're always talking about that. And I heard that ERC20 is such a garbage token, and, I get it, right? Well, I want you guys to understand that, basically speaking, ERC20, and you heard me say this a lot, the most popular smart contract out there. But in reality, technically speaking, ERC20 is a token standard on the Ethereum blockchain, not necessarily just a smart contract itself. It defines a set of rules and functions that any token on the Ethereum network must implement to be compatible with various wallets, exchanges, and other Ethereum-based applications. Now, while this was introduced in 2015, shortly after the launch, Ethereum saw significant standardization and ease of use. Okay, this is what really caused even price action. That's something I want to point out for you guys today. So it provided a common framework, of course, for the tokens. ERC20 itself made it much more easier for developers to create and distribute digital assets, of course, on Ethereum. And I'm talking about, Ethereum. Obviously, there was a whole issue of original Ethereum, Ethereum Classic. I don't want to get into that. But the significance of this, hear me out before we move forward and why this is important. It was standardization. Provided consistent set of rules for token creation. Hear me out. Where am I going with this? Yeah, you better believe it. Stellar and token creation. I'm calling it right now, and I hope this ages well. But I truly believe that after Sorbonne's fully implemented, we will see an announcement in regards to Stellar and new tokens, right? Like, for example, they'll have their own version of ERC20. It won't be called ERC20. It'll be called, I don't know, XLM20 or something like that. Just hear me out on that. Now, some people will say, that's bad. No, it's not. Because as we know, Ethereum in itself is Ethereum. right? You could own like a full ETH, which costs, I don't know, $3,500 to $4,000, give or take, right? But that's his own coin. But the tokens are ERC20, and that was the most popular, still is, smart contract, or in this case, standardized token out there. All right. So it made it easier for developers to understand, interact with, of course, different tokens. All right. But it's also interoperability. ERC20, if you weren't aware of this, are compatible with a wide range of Ethereum-based applications, wallets, exchanges, and of course, that increased the utility. Some people say there's not much utility, but there is utility. But it was ease of use. Say what you want, even though it's slow. The standard's clear and concise definition made it relatively simple for developers, or more, in most cases, let's face it, memes, to be implemented on chain. And even those without extensive experience in smart contract development, they're still doing it, right? But is there a better solution? And if more importantly, will we see widespread adoption for Stellar? All right, where I'm going at with the whole thing is this. I want to show you some more things, okay? And I think it's definitely worth pointing out because sometimes people just aren't fully aware of some of these things, and that's okay. That's totally okay. All right, where I'm going with the whole thing is, people have asked, does, for example, Stellar, like, for example, do they put a focus on having a rich ecosystem? Well, again, yes, but they got to get to that ecosystem by producing, smart contract functionalities and so on, to be able to take this to the next level. So, as we know, this Protocol 21 upgrade, the introduction of Sorbonne, smart contract platform. Why is this so significant? Well, it's expanding use case. We talked about this, right? But it's increased developer ecosystem. Sorbonne definitely attracts developers who specialize in smart contract development, expanding Stellar's development community. But it's the functionality. Sorbonne provides more flexible and a more powerful platform for building dApps compared to traditional Stellar transactions, like the XLM. This can enable developers to create more complex and sophisticated applications, right? dApps on Stellar. That's the whole point. As we know, they compete, of course, with Ethereum. And they also compete, obviously, with Solana. But Sorbonne positions Stellar as a direct competitor to Ethereum and Solana, as the dominant platform for smart contracts. By offering a faster, cheaper, and potentially more scalable alternative, Stellar can attract developers who are using to seek more of an efficient solution. There's huge growth that is involved with this, but it's providing a versatile and competitive platform compared to the other two big juggernauts. All right, where I want to show you is this, okay? And that is, it's not on the screen, it's actually me writing some notes. But some people ask, well, Max, does that mean that Solana has smart contracts? Well, technically, hear me out on this. Solana does have smart contracts, but their approach is slightly different from, of course, Ethereum and other EVM-based blockchains. Listen to this. Stateless execution. Now, we talk about state bloat, but stateless execution. Solana programs, which is the equivalent of smart contracts, see the technicalities, are stateless. This means that the program logic itself doesn't store data. Instead, data is stored in a separate on-chain accounts. They have parallel processing. Solana's architecture in itself allows for parallel execution of smart contracts, which could basically significantly improve performance and, of course, scalability. But there's programming languages. Yes, they have Rust, just like, Stellar Sorbonne, and also C and C++. But the point is, Solana's approach to smart contracts is designed to supposedly improve performance and scalability, but we talked about how it doesn't really do that, right? You have a scalability problem. What I gathered here is something that was definitely, I guess you could say, worth pointing out. So, number one, let's take you back to this thing about Ethereum. Again, understand that smart contract functionality, or I should say functionality, introducing the concept was in 2015. I shared the wrong screen. I'm going to share this one instead. Because, again, this is Fabian, okay? But basically, Fabian Vogel Stellar, all right? No pun intended, not connected to Stellar. But the introduction to ERC20 smart contracts. Why is this crucial for your understanding? Fabian Vogelsteller, which is now part of Luxo, proposed a solution to these challenges. In 2015, he submitted an idea called Ethereum Request for Comments 20. That's why it's called ERC20 on Ethereum GitHub page, making the 20th comment on the forum. In it, he described what is now known as the ERC20 standard, a technical guideline for smart contracts that power tokens created on Ethereum, basically. ERC20 was approved and implemented in 2017. Today, many tokens built on Ethereum operate within the ERC20 standard, including Uniswap, Circle, USD, all that stuff, right? USDC, and even Aave, right? And there's countless other ones. Where I'm going with this is this statement. In 2015, Ethereum developers representing the broader community created the ERC20 standard, which was officially recognized in September 2017. And again, about Fabian's reference. I just want to show you guys proof of this. All right. What I'm going to share is this key metric for your understanding. Okay. So basically, here it is once again. And we get 42 cents, all-time lows, 2015. Okay. Then something happens in 2017. All right. There's bump up. But why is that really, really important? Well, sometimes you just need to look at the chart and you got to zoom in on history. So you're going to see here, for example, I don't know why I keep doing that, but look what is really interesting here. So for the longest time, Ethereum from 2015, like roughly, was it like about roughly 40, 50 cents? It starts kind of somewhat climbing, but it stays kind of like around this price range for, I don't know, I would say a good year and a half and so on. And again, you got to keep in mind the concept of a smart contract introduced in 2015. But now things get interesting in 2017. So did something significant happen in September 1st of 2017? And the answer is yes. How so? As you see right here, look what happened when we get to right here, actually. On September 1st, 2017, Ethereum goes to $387.82. Well, you got to keep in mind, right? All this time up to that point. All right. Is that it? No, it's not it. So that announcement kind of was a buy the rumor, sell the news for a brief bit. Then the price, of course, drops. You got to keep in mind 4-year cycles and so on, right? I should say 4-year cycles. I mean, in reality, not even that particular cycle, but anyway. So it drops down. Then huge supply and demand after this is fully implemented. Again, keep in mind what you saw that was mentioned. September, it's fully implemented. Okay. So think about it. All right. News breaks out shortly after, like roughly not even a month after. Then the deployment of lots and lots and lots of smart contracts. Price soars. Absolutely soars. Okay. Going up to $1,158. Okay. So keep in mind there's a difference between introducing smart contracts and utility in motion and mass adoption. Okay. This is what I want you to picture in regards to Stellar. Okay. All right. Getting into a little bit more about this, why this is important is basically a few key things, right? So, from what I gathered, people point out, like, what was the average price of Ethereum in 2015? Well, basically, for the year, it was like 74 cents. But again, looking at some of this stuff, I mean, I think it's a really, really big deal, to say the least, right? So, from here, it just gets better and better. Let's pull up a little bit more about this. All right. So this is the 2017 going into 2018 cycle. And look what happens, basically. You see here that you have Ethereum really taken off. All right. So it goes all the way up to, like we said, beginning of the year 2018, the 1,158. And then, of course, there's some time in between. Again, think about it, a cycle, right? And so where are we at with this next cycle, right? We are entering post-halving, waiting for the market to really turn around. And what do you see up here? You see, for example, that by May of 8th, 2021, Ethereum hits close to $4,000, right? And then even from there, let's take you to the next part of this real quick. It's going to refresh this. Let's click on all. All right. You see here, for example, yeah, look at this. This is 2021, the height of 2021, 11/08, 2021. Because on 11/11, 2021, BTC hits, 69K. So on 11/8, 2021, you see Ethereum hitting about $4,800. Okay. And then this does kind of like a cup and handle, as the saying goes. Next cycle, which is the cycle we're in now. A few months back, we see this go up to about 4,000. Okay. Again, understand this. While people don't like the concept of ERC20 smart contracts, it is the most popular one out there. All right. I need to get into a little bit more about this. I know it's quite the deep dive, but this will age well, in my opinion. I want to jump into this other key thing I need to talk about. Okay. So basically speaking, we understood that with ERC20, there was what they refer to as a DeFi boom. And boy, was there ever a boom. I mean, say what you want. I mean, this is where last cycle, things really, really shined, of course, for Ethereum. Whether we like that or not, it did. So what I gathered is basically a couple of things. The DeFi boom of 2021 and also the NFT explosion. So ERC20 in 2021, hear me out. Decentralized finance movement gained significant momentum, of course, in 2021. Many, of course, DeFi apps built on ETH. ERC20 tokens were essential for representing various financial assets. Still are, if you want to get really technical. Such as stablecoins, lending tokens, governance tokens, basically anything that had DeFi protocols. It grew in popularity, especially, of course, with meme coins. But the point was the underlying platforms that use these applications. All right, that was ERC20. What about a little bit of the NFT side of things? Well, that, of course, saw a lot of surge in popularity in 2021 for Ethereum. And basically speaking, the demand for NFTs drove up the price significantly for ETH because, back to what Mark Cuban mentioned, gas fees being used over and over and over. Nobody likes those gas fees, but that was utility put into motion. And as a result, that was the primary currency used for buying and selling these digital collectibles, right? You had to have Ethereum to pay for the gas fees. As a result, say what you want, it did create increased adoption. The overall adoption of Ethereum as a platform for decentralized applications definitely did increase in 2021, but more dApps were built on Ethereum, and the demand for its native token, of course, rose, contributing to its price appreciation. A lot of key things happened, but it did. That was significant. All right, so that was that. What about Solana? Because you did talk about that, Max. I did. Here's Solana. And what's interesting, even with Solana, is when we look into some of the fundamentals. So even with last bull cycle, you saw as high as, for example, was it 11/6/2021? Literally 2 days before Ethereum's all-time highs, Solana, right, that was $258, give or take, all-time highs. Okay, interesting. And even in this market, you see, for example, this, right? Roughly around 202 March 31st. Okay. So cycles, right? All right. At the end of the day, what about, for example, Stellar? Did Stellar do anything significant when Ethereum did? The answer is yes. Why is that significant? Well, jumping into it, this surge, okay? So 2017, did something happen big in September or right after it, even with Stellar? And Stellar, you got to keep in mind, didn't have smart contracts, right? Yeah, look at this. You see that, boom, price surges crazy, right? Goes up to 66 cents. Now, again, not, you know, tens, $10, $100, thousands of dollars like Solana and Ethereum, but that was worth noting that it did surge and it did have its moment. Did it have its moment again? Yes, it did. May 11, 2021, just like what you saw with Solana and Ethereum. Okay. But it didn't have as big of a moment as Ethereum and Solana in 2021, but it was still somewhat up there, right? But again, supply and demand forces. This doesn't have smart contracts. Okay. So, where does this lead us all in conclusion? Well, basically speaking, I want you guys to understand my remaining notes, and that is basically this. Solana emerging in itself. Why is Solana considered Ethereum's top rival? At least then, and maybe still now to this day. Why did it reach all-time highs in 2021 compared to its rival Ethereum? Well, basically, the claim of scalability. Now, that claim then compared to now, totally different stories, right? But Solana's unique proof of stake consensus mechanism and hybrid architecture allowed, at least for that time period, significantly higher transaction speeds and lower fees compared to Ethereum. It was a platform, as people saw, where this is a legitimate alternative compared to Ethereum for the time period. Again, keep in mind, Stellar don't have or didn't have smart contract functionality then. But again, it made it more attractive for decentralized applications that required rapid and affordable transactions. Solana's theoretical maximum transaction throughput was at the time far superior, of course, to Ethereum. I mean, leaps and bounds if you want to just talk about TPS in itself. But even then, the developer community was robust. Solana attracted a growing community of developers who were, of course, attracted to its scalability and performance advantages. But it created, of course, a vibrant ecosystem. Say what you want, even right now, that stands out. But tokenomics were another thing. Solana's token in itself experienced significant price appreciation, driven by, of course, factors of increased adoption, of course, on their own network, their ecosystem, and with more people being speculative about it, buying in also drove the price up. But the price growth contributed to its overall market capitalization and prominence. How so? Well, back in 2021, several factors led to that. And from what I gathered, it was DeFi activity, all right? Increased DeFi activity. The surge in decentralized finance applications on Solana itself drove its scalability and performance advantages. And it led to significant increase in demand for its native token, of course, which is SOL, Solana. There was some institutional interest, but that growing interest from institutional investors in the cryptocurrency market, including Solana, contributed to significant price appreciation. And of course, there's speculation, and there's people that FOMO'd in. The rest is history. The next part I want to get into is understanding that when we compare, for example, Stellar's institutional interest compared to Ethereum and Solana, wow, there's a huge difference. So let's compare and contrast before we wrap this up. So is it a really truly institutional interest in Stellar, Ethereum, and even Solana? Well, there has been a surge in institutional interest in all three, but it's the ones that come out as the prominent key players in this space. And if anything, which one provides like a more unique use case? So we know that Ethereum is the OG of blockchains, but it's the strengths that they have. And again, don't shoot me for this, but I have to point it out, right? It's part of the outline. So many Ethereum strengths, and that is dominance largely due to his first mover advantage and vast ecosystem, of course, is built. I mean, it's got the biggest ecosystem of anything out there, whether we like that or not. It's kind of like, again, the concept of McDonald's. Does McDonald's have the best hamburger out there? No. But are there more McDonald's than any other fast food franchise out there? Well, the answer is yes, right? So the platform itself of Ethereum is, let's face it, the platform of choice for many decentralized applications, aka dApps, smart contracts, and even NFTs. It has basically attracted a wide range of institutions, even yet, right? From traditional finance players, of course, to the tech giants. Or some of the weaknesses, other than gas fees? Well, basically speaking, that is a huge concern, but it's still the scalability issues, right? I mean, they are not that much ahead of Bitcoin, BTC, in regards to TPS. I mean, what is it, like 11 to 14 TPS, and BTC is like 4 to 7? It's pretty pathetic. But those dealing with large scale transactions, that's definitely a huge weakness for Ethereum. All right, what about Solana? They boast the whole thing of being a high performance challenger. Well, what are some of their strengths? At the end of the day, Solana's key selling point is speed and scalability. Yeah, let's face it. There's some people that haven't even researched Solana, they will state that. But they offer significantly lower transaction fees and faster transaction times compared to Ethereum, making it more attractive, of course, to supposedly institutions that require high throughput. Of course, the weaknesses are what we outlined earlier, in just in case you missed it. Solana faced network outages 10 times, instability, of course, in the past, raising concerns about reliability. But state bloat is probably the biggest underlying factor that doesn't get talked enough about. All right, Stellar, the moment you've been waiting for. Strengths is this: they are definitely the enterprise focused platform. And what I mean by that is their strengths will really shine in this sector. Stellar was designed with enterprise use cases in mind from literally the very beginning. Its focus on cross-border payments, remittances, and financial inclusion has definitely attracted itself to a significant number of financial institutions. I mean, come on, there's Wisdom Tree, there's Franklin Templeton, on and on and on, right? But governments, I mean, say what you want. Remember the video I've done 2 or 3 times about the U.S. Treasury selects Stellar for financial inclusion? Yeah, that's a real thing. Tokenized bonds, stuff like that. Stellar's low transaction fees and energy efficiency definitely are the most attractive features. Is there weaknesses? Well, maybe currently seems like it is. And people will point out that Stellar has, strong enterprise focus, but it doesn't have the same, broad appeal to the general depth developer. Well, compared to like Ethereum or Solana, but not yet, right? Because if anything, Sorbonne is not fully rolled out. But how many times do we see use cases that solve a real problem? Again, back to the beginning of the outline. I think we'll see more and more use cases and problems being solved, not just with state bloat, but developers giving them the tools to build on the platform. See what you want. By giving people the proper tools to do their job, it makes things more efficient and gives them more incentives to want to stick around. But do we have a clear winner here of the three? Well, determining a clear winner, let's face it, it's a matter of perspective, but not for me. For me, the clear winner is Stellar moving forward because there's more potential there compared to the juggernauts of Ethereum and Solana. But determining a clear winner among these three platforms depends on specific needs and priorities of who? Institutions. So institutions seeking a mature ecosystem with a wide range of dApps and tools, as we see, may prefer Ethereum. Maybe for the time being, though. Institutions prioritizing speed, scalability, and lower transaction fees may lead towards Solana. Maybe not when they see some of the news about state problems. But institutions focus on enterprise applications, you better believe it, and as well as cross-border payments and financial inclusion, hence the US Treasury, will definitely find that Stellar is their best fit. In conclusion, while Ethereum, at least on the surface, seems to be this significant first mover advantage and a vast ecosystem, like McDonald's, a blockchain, and Solana and Stellar offer unique value propositions to cater to specific needs and wants, the choice of platform ultimately depends on the institution's goals, risk tolerance, and technical requirements, and more importantly, trust. Say what you want. You can appreciate that Stellar took the time to build a quality product compared to the ones that were first movers or rushed to market. Long term, I'm betting on Stellar. Are you? With that said, that's going to conclude the research for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe we'll get into more of Sorbonne later on. If you listen to the complete outline, do me a favor and simply type this, and that is IL, which means I listened. Appreciate all of you guys who take the time to listen to the material. It means a lot. I wish and hope and pray for all your success, mine, yours, your family, and everybody moving forward. I cover other ones other than just Stellar, Quant, Jasmine, quite a few others, right? But at the end of the day, I think we all are hoping and dreaming for better times ahead, some kind of a better way out, not having to just grind and grind and grind all the time. But we can appreciate the grind. I'm rooting for all of you, all of your success. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.